So I thought it would be fun today to take the quote that I was talking about yesterday. And the quote is information control then is an important mechanism for both the exercise and the avoidance of influence. And that's a pretty interesting quote because there's so many layers to that. And I think one of the issues is what is information? And we get a lot of different types of information. And I think yesterday I talked a bit about customer buying teams and they give out information, right? And there might be information about the customer and the buying team. And there's also information about the supplier, right? And the seller, the salesperson, right? They give information. And information can be, it could be misleading, it could be incomplete. Right, so how do you understand and have enough information so that you can make a decision? And I think we like to believe that online you can find all the information you want, and you can find a good amount of information. You can find reviews, product reviews. So for example, Gartner, I believe in the B2B space, especially for digital transformation or digital and IT products, they have a site that has reviews that you can get a good idea of what a solution is all about and what it's like to work with that company. And companies might use information like, for example, from LexisNexis, or they might look at other types of information, even information from something like, and the name escapes me, um, but like Standard and Poor's, right, for example, to understand your credit rating information, right? So there's lots of different types of information. So what I was looking at for information, so you might have information that can also add to create a symmetric relationship, right? We like to believe that. That's what that influence was kind of alluding to, right? That you have two different organizations. You have the customer buying team, right? And then you have the supplier salesperson, the seller. And so something is happening there. They have an asymmetrical relationship, right? Because the customer buying team wants to get a solution to their problem. And the supplier salesperson, they are looking to sell a product and get revenue, right? So there's some different goals going on over there, right? So you have asymmetry that's coming from those conflicting motivations and goals. There's a lot of uncertainty in this, right? There's a tremendous amount of uncertainty in this, right? So let's say the customer buying team, what are they getting into, right? What is going to be happening with this, with the dependence with the supplier? What is going to happen in their organization, right? I think we know you choose the wrong solution. Oh my goodness, you could lose your business, right? And the same thing over on the other side with the seller. You could have, like, let's say the wrong customer. You don't have a good distribution of customers, right? Things like that. There's also, because you have two layers going on too, right? You have the organization layer and you also have the individuals involved, right? So they're having some dialogue and they have signals, and signals is information, right? So we're going to get a little into that, right? So there's signals and information. And I want to talk a little bit about signals because I think that is always a neglected part of information. There's an aspect to that. And when I went back to IE University for the communications and marketing degree. One of the things that I learned about was a little more in PR. So I had a little bit more formal PR training. And one of the things that we started talking about, because we also discussed too about reputation management. And one of the things in reputation management is signals. What signals are being pushed out? And I think sometimes we don't realize that organizations give signals based on their actions. And that's information, right? That's a type of communication. It is information. So that can also be part of the mix. So when you want to start to create a more symmetric relationship, right, and determine what's going on and how this relationship is going to work, how this dependent situation is going to work, you have branding, right? Branding is an aspect of this, right? What does a brand communicate? What are the signals from the brand, right? Is that coming through in the company culture? Is there a disconnect between the brand and the company culture? That's important, right? Because that can have a lot of different meanings. I'm not going to go into that today. It could be a whole course about this, about what it means when a brand and a brand communication is very different from what's happening in a corporate culture or how they're engaging with customers, right? You have a first person sales meeting. There's a lot of signals that go on in that sales meeting, right? There's a lot of different what is it, the ceremonies. There's a lot of different rituals that happen, right? For actually that first person sales meeting, that is a ritual. That is a ritual. There's rapport. There's a lot of questions about rapport. We are not going to get into that today. That is a whole discussion, right? But rapport is built. So we could say that there is some type of connection that is being built between people. Psychological safety. You have to feel safe enough to have a conversation. And then there's influence, emotional engagement, right? And that kind of gets to some things about information and how it's accepted or not. So let's say you could have product information. You could have information about the companies, right? So each side might have information about the companies they're doing business with, their financial information. How, are they financially healthy? Or maybe there might be something going on where you're like, I don't know, right? Could be a startup. So there could be issues about are they going to be around in 5 years? Right? That's important, right? Especially if you're going to be basing your organization off of a technology, right? That you need it to be around for like 5 to 10 years, right? If that goes away, your business could go away. You could have information about the salesperson, right? And it's not personal information. It might be how they conduct themselves, right? Again, signals, right? How they're acting, right? What does that communicate to you? There are studies about second, third person, right? And when their influence, the salesperson's influence to other people within the buying team and beyond. How do they act to other people in the company? That's a signal. That's a signal about who that person is, right? So not just the product information. We like to believe that we can get all the product information and that's going to help us make a decision. Not always, right? Like let's say it's a complex B2B digital transformation solution. What could you could also have, oh my goodness, right? This gets really interesting too, is how it's implemented. You could have information about the process, about the cost, right? The finances we haven't really talked about, right? That's also a factor. These are all just off the top of my head. I'm just looking at a little diagram right here. But these are all different things that can be included, right? You could have stakeholders. Stakeholders might have different perspectives of what needs to happen. And again, they might be putting out signals. Could be signals at the organizational level based on acquisitions, based on new customers, based on announcements, right? So you start to see, right, when in this original quote, right, it sounds so basic, right? Information control is an important mechanism for both the exercise and avoidance of influence. This is huge, right? And what are organizations sharing, not sharing, repositioning, right? There's a lot that goes on here. And so you can start to see how the dependence of an organization is so important here, but you could also create a loop, for example, where between organizations or between teams, right? Where there it's all ambiguous, and you can see where ambiguity starts to explode with uncertainty and what it could mean for an organization, what it could mean to the team, what it could mean to individuals. And again, we have the layers, right? The organization layer, the team layer, and the individual layer. There's so much here. It's such a rich experience. I could go on and on. Isn't it so exciting? Anyway, wanted to share that today. I look forward to hearing any thoughts and feedback. Sorry, I'm looking for my pause. Feel free to share any thoughts and feedback, and I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day.